Okay, so today is Indie Bookstore Day, 2025. Uh, and it is the day that we are supposed to be celebrating and shopping at our local independent bookstores, which you absolutely should be. However, Amazon is running a deal not only on that day, but on the all the surrounding days. Barnes and Noble has a deal leading up to that day, which will take money away from independent bookshops. And really, we need to talk about why it's so important to support your local independent bookshops. Amazon is great. It delivers stuff in half a day, but it's not necessarily that important. Like let's talk about why is it so important to support your local independent bookstore? Beatrice, I'm calling you first.
Oh no. Um, I mean, one of the things that I feel like it's the most obvious one is that our independent bookstores are independent. They are benefiting the people in our communities directly and not a huge company that is paying their employees very, very badly up to the point that they're almost slaves and they don't have things like paid sick time and reasonable hours and reasonable hazard and safety compensation.
To be clear, we're
Um,
talking about Amazon there,
yeah,
not
we're
Barnes and
we're
Noble. We
talking about
we
Amazon, not
don't
Barnes and
know if
Noble.
Barnes and Noble treats their employees like shit. So,
One of the things though that I could say that it's like a benefit of shopping in a independent bookshop more than Barnes and Noble, for example, is that you don't have to be constantly upsold something.
mhm.
I used to work on retail for a really long time, and it is a requirement for you as an employee to upsell not only like the articles that they have like in the registers or everything, but also the some of the deals that they have that include memberships and credit cards.
No, yeah.
And a lot of the employees in Barnes and Noble are required to do that. They don't have any choice whatsoever in doing it, but they have to spend a significant time doing that instead of actually helping you with whatever book needs that you have. So if you love books and you want to go buy a book, you want to go maybe talk to someone and ask them to recommend you, like whatever they want and everything. Even if they want to spend the time with you, they are incapable of doing that
Hmm.
because they have big Barnes and Noble screaming at them, sell them stuff, sell them stuff, sell them stuff, and they are required
Yeah.
to do so to keep their job.
Yeah, I've
I
worked a lot of retail, and yeah, it's always like you have to upsell this. There's always a quota to hit this. It may not be the individual, but it's the store, and it just loses a little bit of that soul.
One of the very interesting things that I learned while researching for this is that a lot of the things going on at like, for example, Barnes and Noble, because that's the example that I found, that like physical bookstores that are even supposedly like human or like staff picks and stuff are sent from corporate.
Well, that's
So
sad.
the staff picks from Barnes and Noble, from your local Barnes and Noble, this was said by a Barnes and Noble employee. I will pull up her former Barnes and Noble employee. I'll pull up her YouTube in a little bit and I'll kind of like shout her out. They were sent guidelines. Hey, you have to put this as a staff pick very specifically with this quote and tell people that your local staff picked it
Hmm.
and put it in the shelf. All of the things that it's like, oh, these are the deals that we think is going to be better for you. Nothing, they don't have control over a lot of the things, and they have their hands tied over things to recommend because unfortunately, their bosses have them follow an agenda. Whereas in local bookshops, they don't have that big corporation towering over them, telling them what to do. And they can actually have the liberty to be genuine with you and even share stuff with you. One of my best bookshop experiences was at my local bookshop in Caracas, my city, where I grew up, lived my entire life, that I would go every single Saturday because I would go to like English classes and then to the bookshop as a little treat. And that was I think the person that probably fomented the love for writing for me. I was a little kid and I liked horror because I was weird as shit. And they always took the time to talk to me about horror books because they loved horror. I discovered Stephen King and I started reading Stephen King because of my conversations with them. They gave me fun facts. They told me the whole thing about like supposedly Pennywise the clown is hidden in every single Stephen King movie or series that has ever existed ever. So I made a game with my family to find Pennywise the clown. All of that was just like a like childhood building like memory that happened because this independent book owner took the time to talk to 10-year-old me. And in the end, I didn't quit writing because I read On Writing by Stephen King like 7 times and helped myself motivate.
So I would say, and I mean, I'm not gonna say that the people who work at Barnes and Noble don't love books. Like I'm sure most of them enjoy reading, but I feel like if you want someone that actually really loves books, like that's where you find those in your independent bookstore. Like those are the people who, you know, they're not going to make a ton of money. They're like the independent bookstores typically don't become incredibly successful or incredibly wealthy. But that's where you go to find someone who really like if you want to go talk books, like they understand a lot of the different genres, the ins, the outs, they understand the industry. Like that's where you go to find those people. And I'm the ones I've dealt with, they'll usually talk your ear off if they have the time. But Yashi, what do you think?
I, oh no, my voice. Um, I guess when I was dealing with a lot of bookstores, because it's really the only thing I do on my free time, it was hard just trying to get into a conversation with a lot of the employees when I was looking for certain books. Like, I feel like the curation when it comes to Barnes and Noble versus an indie bookstore is kind of noticeable. So like when I went to Barnes and Noble for something by an obscure Indian author, um I don't have any of those books nearby. But I would bring it up to them and they're looking at me like I have three heads. And I'm just like, oh, I could just show you a picture of it. And they'll be like, oh, this book, it's all the way in the back. And I was like, oh, okay, thank you. I will go to the back. Um, but when it came to like an independent bookstore, they would have these shelves of like BIPOC, authors just sitting there. And I think there was a recent problem with a book called Legendborn, was it? Where Barnes and Noble they had a very, very small table set for it, whereas for Sarah J. Maas, they
Oh.
had a giant display at the front of the store just for her. Whereas this author who is known to be black had a very tiny table. In independent bookstores, they were very like large and she was put on display or they were put on display just for being, not just being a BIPOC author, but just being amazing. It you don't get any of that in like big chain stores, I guess.
I mean, I would assume that Barnes and Noble has to bow to a different set of pressure than an independent bookstore, whereas, you know, they have stakeholders, board of directors, all that jazz, who are typically going to be rich old white people. And rich old white people don't like,
People
we're
that are
back.
not rich,
Yeah.
old white.
Yeah. I mean, they have expectations and views of the of society, and they are less likely to say, yes, let's put, the people of color, the gay, lesbian, and anyone that is of a different sexuality, let's put them on display because there is a part of society that is going to reject that, revolt against that, leave nasty emails, Facebook posts, whatever. Whereas independent bookstores probably going to be significantly more open to that just because, that's who they are. That's who they want to celebrate. They don't care who you are. They care that you wrote a great book.
Yeah, definitely. When I was back in college, I used to go to an indie bookstore almost every day. Like, and we just chat about just random books that come out and what they thought was their actual favorite. Like, not, okay, let's push out what corporate thinks is
Hmm.
my favorite. And I also kind of noticed like there's a lot more events that go on at indie bookstores. Like they take the time to connect with their communities around, maybe an author or maybe a book reading or something. But it's not, I guess, like pushed by corporate in a sense.
Yeah. I think another thing to really think about is the impact that it has on your local community. And I don't just mean like in the sense of kind of like we talked about in our episode about libraries, like the place for people to gather, but the people who work in an independent bookstore are people who live in your community. That's their jobs. If you don't order a book from Amazon, that person who lives in your community, if you have an Amazon warehouse near you, that person's still going to have a route. They're still going to make deliveries. They're still going to, be able to pay their bills. If you don't buy from an Amazon, or excuse me, if you don't buy from an independent bookstore, that person could live down the street from you, and suddenly they can't pay their bills anymore because you wanted it delivered overnight instead of driving 5 blocks to go buy it from an actual store. Like these are independent bookstores are going to give jobs to people in your community. And where we're at in the society where everyone's so concerned about jobs, support the group that's going to give you jobs.
And also not only books, but a lot of people, because probably they don't frequent independent bookstores, they don't realize that a lot of them sell way more than just
Hmm.
books. A lot of them have sections of things that have been created by local artists. Mine has. And it's like, even if you want to, they sell jewelry, they sell earrings, they sell stickers, they say, I believe, amigurumis and like crocheted bags and like other things that you could even go if you need to give someone a gift, if you want to give a little treat for yourself. It doesn't necessarily have to be a book. Books are very expensive, but sometimes I just go and buy a $3 sticker and put it in my water bottle. A lot of the majority of this are just like things that I have just bought. This is my favorite one from independent local artists because I go to cafes, I go to local bookstores, I go everywhere and I try to, kind of like scavenge and grab the little things. And sometimes they are there. Sometimes they are the people that work at the bookshop that they have a passion and they kind of like sell their there too. It's again like in the libraries, people don't realize because they're not taking the time to actually go there that there's way more to offer than just
Hmm.
the whole like books, just books, and I don't want a book right now. And it's what Yashi was saying. They host a lot of events. They do a lot of things that are community building. And in the political climate that we have nowadays, it's more important than ever to get to know the community that you're living in. See who the people around you are. Maybe you share some values with some people that you don't realize. Maybe you make new friends that have very similar ideas that your ideas and you become stronger by that. And maybe if you disagree with particular things that are happening in the world, it is beneficial that you find the people that also disagree with those things. And a lot of people that would share your ideals would also go to support independent local people. So everything is just interconnected and we need that more than ever. And it doesn't even have to be physically. You can order online from a lot of independent bookshops for them to order books there and then you just go pick it up. Some of them even have local deliveries and the delivery person actually also lives in your community. So take a little bit of time, even if it's just Googling what's around.
And a good place to locate your local independent bookshop is indiebound.org. They have like an entire map, and obviously it's not going to be everything, but I mean, like I just pulled up this has a list of bookstore crawls. So there is, all sorts of stuff that you can find online where your independent bookstores are. And I'd be willing to bet that there's probably more than you would expect. There's going to be some that specialize in different kinds of books, different kinds of fiction, nonfiction, go visit them all. I'm sure anyone there would just love to chat with you, talk about books, try to maybe you're going to find a new author that you've never heard of. That might be your new favorite author. And I think that's probably where independent bookstores shine the most is finding those authors off the beaten path, because they are not beholden to corporate like, oh, like using Yash example, Sarah J. Maas just put out a new book. We need to ship 50,000 copies and sell them all. They can be like, yes, I saw this person online. I think their ideas are great. I think the book's great. We're gonna bring in, 10 copies and be able to order more. So they are creating publishing and sales opportunities for additional authors as well. So not just your mainstream authors, other authors, smaller authors, authors like people on this podcast, people who are probably listening to this, people in the Story Forge community. So support your local bookshops. It's just the right thing to do.
I've definitely heard stories like indie authors would often go to their local bookstores with some of their books in hand and just give it to them to sell, and they'd gladly take it. So just going to an indie bookstore is helping more than one
Yeah.
person. It's not just, the artists or the authors that are more mainstream. It's also the indie authors in your local area.
Yeah. I mean, there's so for people who aren't familiar, Michigan has an Upper Peninsula and there's an island called Mackinac Island. There was a bookstore in there that is dedicated to people from the area or people who've written books about the area. So there's literally people who have grown up, been in Michigan, lived in Michigan, from Michigan. And I mean, I think that's really cool. And you're not going to find that at Barnes and Noble. You're not going to find that at Amazon. You're not going to find that at, because there really aren't any other big bookstores left,
They
are
have
there?
gotten eaten by Amazon mostly. Because I
Yeah,
know Amazon acquired a whole bunch of like the
because
old big names.
yeah, there was like Schuler's, because it was Barnes and Nobles and Schuler's were the two big ones for a long time. Um,
That
there were,
sounds like it was before my time.
yeah, I mean there was a couple of others around here, but I'm trying to think if they were independent or not. I don't think they were chains. But yeah, I mean typically everything's kind of getting swallowed up by Amazon because you see it, you click on a computer, half the time it's here in 24 hours. That's significantly easier than going out and getting it. I'm not pretending like I don't do that. I order from Amazon quite frequently. But I think there are times when we need to say, yes, this is more convenient, but I'm gonna go check out something independent. I'm gonna check out something local. And I think we all just need to take the time and do that sometimes.
Another good way to support your independent bookstores online without having like to drive anywhere is if you like audiobooks, there is this page called libro.fm that it's literally costs the same as Audible, but you have more books available to you, and you can also choose to instead of buying a membership, just buying audio like the audiobook itself. But they support independent bookstores, and whenever you make your purchase, you can either choose which specific independent bookstore you want, like a that like portion of like the support go to, or they have like a pool of independent bookstores that have signed with them, and they support them with like a portion of your purchase. So instead of just going to Audible and buying a membership for like a book a month, maybe just check out that. Maybe just check out Libro FM. I think it's cool. I haven't personally used it yet. I've seen it recommended a lot. I checked their site. I really like how forward they are with their mission of supported independent bookstores. And I have seen more than one independent bookstore owner recommend it directly because it supports their bookstore.
Nice. All right. Any final thoughts? Otherwise, we can go ahead and wrap this one up. All right. So on that note, happy Independent Bookshop Day. Please go shop local. And just remember, publishers behaving badly. It's not you, it's them.
It's them.